Hi, I'm Dr. Jinsy Andrews, and I'm the Director of Neuromuscular Clinical Trials at Columbia University Medical Center. I am also an ALS specialist that cares for people living with the disease. Currently, I serve as the co-chair of the Northeastern ALS Consortium, also known as NEALS, which is a network of over 100 ALS clinical trial centers internationally. I also serve as a National Board of Trustee member for the ALS Association. I so wish we could gather in person and celebrate all the achievements made in ALS, and also talk about the things that we still need to do. But as you know, ALS stops for nothing, and as a community, we need to come together and keep things moving forward. In recent months, ALS research has made notable progress despite the pandemic. A publication was released regarding a gene-directed therapy called tofersen, which it targets a specific gene mutation called SOD1. In this early phase clinical trial, the drug was able to reduce the toxic protein that we believe contribute to this form of the disease and showed a preliminary signal of slowing disease progression at the highest doses. A confirmatory study is ongoing and thankfully not disrupted or stopped by the COVID-19 pandemic. Another phase 2 clinical trial study evaluating AMX0035 was also published. This clinical trial was also funded by the ALS Association and showed that AMX0035 slowed disease progression in people living with ALS. Now, typically, a second clinical trial is required for drug approval, but the ALS Association has partnered with other groups to launch a petition to urge the FDA and the sponsor to move with urgency to get this drug available to all people living with ALS. The pandemic has thrown many challenges our way, and it was difficult to continue clinical trials and provide clinical care. Through the support of the ALS Association, as well as other organizations like NEALS and the International Alliance, several webinars took place to inform the ALS community. Through these communications, we learned that centers were able to continue clinical trials that were ongoing prior to the pandemic without disruption. This took a lot of planning and adjustments and true commitment by the clinical trial centers, their staff, and also the patients and families participating in those trials. Additionally, we were able to share information regarding how to continue care and keep people living with ALS safe during these uncertain times. New studies were delayed during this period, but thankfully not stopped. Most centers in the United States are getting their studies up and running now or have started their clinical trials with the adjustments learned through the information exchange from the peak of the pandemic. Most importantly, every care center had to find a way to continue to provide care despite the surges of COVID-19. This included converting in-person visits to telemedicine visits, and also finding ways to assess needs remotely. Most importantly, care centers relied on a network of providers in the field. I call these people the unsung heroes of the ALS pandemic. These people included members of the Greater New York ALS Association Care Services team, who I know I had to personally call for help for people I took care of. People like Tracy, Christine, Nancy, Teresa, Helen, Michelle, Debbie, Bob, just to name a few. That's not even everybody. But without this care services team, I don't think ALS care centers could fully provide the care and support needed for people living with the disease and their families. We as a community are essential to making progress together for ALS, and especially in research and clinical care. And as I mentioned before, this is a unique time, this is an uncertain time, but ALS stops for nothing, and we certainly can't wait.